Welcome to the great Kraken fans around Seattle, around the United States, and around the world. The first ever official Seattle Kraken podcast. Signals from the deep. My name is Nick Olczyk. I'm honored, I'm grateful, and I'm thrilled to be your host and to have all of you along for what is going to be a beautiful ride. Today, starting off the first episode, we thought that there was no better two guests to have. They are great friends. They are the very best at what they do, respectively, in the game of hockey and in the world of broadcasting.
I am your father, so get to that here. Come on.
But more importantly,
I've known you since you're 12.
but more importantly,
It's a long
2/3
time ago.
of the best regional broadcast in the league. Johnny Forslund, Eddie Olczyk. Johnny, Dad, thank you guys for coming on.
Hi, Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Great job driving to get us in for the show today. That
Yeah,
was
it
great.
was-
You got to recognize
I only
that
got yelled at
sometimes
for
the
speeding.
bridge- Sometimes the bridge is shut down here. You have to know that if you're driving me. Okay, just be prepared. Hi, Johnny.
And hi, Edzo. And I know firsthand, when he's in that seat, it's not easy.
Oh, man.
It's not easy.
Yeah. I think I should just give him
It
a
comes
steering
with
wheel.
a ton of pressure.
You know what? I would want to drive. I want to
Scrutiny.
drive every once in a while, but I figured, you know what? Isn't that one of the reasons why you have kids? Is that you can just sit there? And
Yeah,
let them
and I
drive
feel
it?
like a kid when I'm carting this guy around Seattle.
Nick. This is the Maiden Voyage. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you having us.
Yeah, I know you guys got very
Yes.
busy schedules.
Oh,
and
yeah.
always have very much a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thank
we
you,
do.
thank you for joining us.
Well, it is nice to be here.
I want to start by you guys have had a long history together. Great
Too
friends.
long at times, I might add.
But tell me about the very first interaction.
Okay, no wait.
Because
okay,
I've
the
heard it's
first
pretty
in-
spicy.
Okay, wait a
can.
second. Now, that question is absolutely loaded. But I'll let Johnny go first, and I want everybody to know that it's probably 27% factual. Okay? So, Johnny, as I like to do, is I will defer to our captain on our broadcast.
Thank you, sir. This story has marinated very well over the years.
Marinated, all right.
I was recalled from the American Hockey League in I believe around 1987, I think it was. And your dad was a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I was brought up to the Islanders to do some radio for them, and we were their affiliate. And I showed up for the morning skate at the Nassau Coliseum and went in the locker room, and I was well aware of your dad's career and his image and this young buck from Chicago whose face was always emblazoned across the cover of the Hockey News and other publications. Pride of USA Hockey and Eddie O. Is Eddie O. So I knew I heard he's a great guy. So I went in and I was nervous and the Islanders were great to me. Guys like Pat LaFontaine and Kelly Rudy, and they were first class. Brian Trottier was still there. It was unbelievable. And I went in and went right up to your dad and said, "Hey, Eddie, John Forslund." And he had the towel around his neck, and he finished and he gave me the old, "Hey, kid, how you doing?" And he just went the other way. And that was the beginning of the whole thing. And I kind of was like, well, at least he acknowledged my presence.
Okay.
Anyway, that's where it is.
I got to jump
Okay.
in now. Now, first off, the towel was not around my neck.
I think it was.
Okay. Okay, that must have been a very large towel. I just got out of the shower, Nick. He's like he kind of followed me into that area there, and it was very uncomfortable. I'm preparing for a game. Just had a morning skate. All of a sudden, this Johnny Forslund comes in, and he introduced. I shook his hand. I looked him right in the eye. I think I did say, "Hey, kid, how you doing?" But again, it was one of those moments where it was very uncomfortable. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you thought it was okay.
And I'll paint the picture too visually. You've got this pro athlete. He's a couple years younger than me, but basically contemporaries.
Well, what do you mean a couple?
Contemporaries,
Yeah.
contemporaries,
Okay,
in many ways. Here I was. I didn't have my glasses yet. Okay, I didn't get glasses till I was like 30. So anyway, but the hair, my nickname in the minors was Hair Don't Move, okay? HDM. So the hair was plastered. I might have had a briefcase because I carried a briefcase.
Was there anything in there?
So
That's
no,
what I want to know.
there's a couple of things in there.
Maybe a sandwich.
Just a couple of things in there. But anyway, that's what it looked like. And it was okay. I was just happy to be there. And
But he made
get
an
the
impression
opportunity.
on me because he came right up to me and introduced himself. And then, I mean, that was the start of this, let's see, a relationship. How do I... How do I define a relationship since 1987?
But then he played, and I covered, and I went to the NHL and watched him, and he was always terrific to us when he played. He was always respectful. He was always an unbelievable person to go to when you're covering the other team.
Yeah.
He gave you the time of day, first class, and things have changed since. But anyway,
It's okay.
and then he went into coaching, and then he became a broadcaster. Then he went into coaching, and I got to see him both ways that way. And then he came back into broadcasting. And then the first series in the playoffs we did together, I believe, was in either 2000 or 2001, Vancouver, St. Louis for ESPN. And that's the first time we worked together.
Did you guys know? Because being friends and working together are two different things. Did you know that was going to kind of be a seamless transition, or at least having a good rapport when you guys eventually did have an opportunity to work?
I think knowing Johnny's work, knowing his track record, the people that he worked around, two people in particular, Johnny, that I admire, and one has been a mentor to me, Paul Holmgren, when you were with Homer in Hartford, and also Berkey, right, Brian Burke. So two guys, Nick, that are, I mean, I would call them iconic in our game, Johnny, over the years, right?
Yes.
Legendary.
Yes.
And so to know what they thought of HDM, it's the first time I think I've ever called you that before.
Yeah.
Sounds like a clothing line.
But knowing Johnny, it probably took I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 shifts, and it was pretty much seamless. And it's been like that because we probably, honestly, Johnny, before this year, we probably had done, what would you say, maybe 100 games, TV and radio together over the years.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, maybe
more than that.
So I think the chemistry, Nick, was, I think it was very instantaneous, and it's been a perfect. It's been a perfect combination, and obviously with JT, the three of us on the games, but our relationship, Johnny, goes way more than just sitting in the booth and throwing on headsets.
Yeah, and the other thing on that is, as I worked in Carolina for a number of years, it was a different time media-wise. So as I worked in Carolina, I did not get very much exposure, to national work, although there was a guy named Larry Christensen at ESPN who gave me my break with ESPN when I was in Hartford and kept me going that way with them on some games. But then everything changed. So my point here would be this. When I got a chance to break in with the NBC group, your dad treated me like a vital part of the team. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he was already in the position, and already once John Davidson stepped aside, there was no question who was going to be the number one analyst in the game. And so every time we worked together, and Doc Emmerich was a model for me throughout my career, going back to his days when he was in the American Hockey League. I tried to do it similar. We're different, but I tried to do the work aspect of the job in a similar vein. Your dad was great to me that way. So, and then things started to fall in place, and I did more and more and more with that group, and so on. But we've always had an authentic approach. I hope people get that. I'm the way I am. He's the way he is. And if you're authentic in broadcasting, it should be okay.
And at the risk of maybe sounding a little bit too cheesy, I did want to ask both of you, when you look and stand back and look at your partnership along with JT Brown too on the broadcasts, what do you think the other does well at such a high level to have not only been around for so long, but to be considered some of the best at what you do in the league? So, Johnny, what do you think? Like, my dad does well, and Dad, what do you think Johnny does that separates the other guy
Right.
from other people
Right.
who might do the same thing?
Okay, so Eddie delivers a lot of things that are vitally important. Number one, there's a deep love for the game. Okay, that's the first thing, and that's a passion that's ingrained in him. So that's no matter what, that'll never go away. Number two, he can read a game better than anybody. He can read things early in games that most people don't get to until we're deeper into the game. And 9 times out of 10, he's bang on with it. And he has a way to communicate that to an audience in a succinct, great listen type of way that people can hear what he's saying and get what he's saying. And he never loses people, and he's relatable. And he has an outstanding personality. So I've always said ice is important in hockey, ice is important in broadcasting. You have to inform, you have to be concise, and you have to entertain. He's got those 3 things, and that's why he's great.
Well, I appreciate that, John. I think with and have worked with some of the best that have put the headset on in the broadcast booth, TV and radio, and I've been very lucky, and I'd like to say I've been very smart to align myself with some of the best. With either, he mentioned Doc, the great Doc Emmerich, Hall of Famer. Pat Foley, who was his partner in Chicago for forever, another Hall of Famer. When I first came into broadcasting consistently, when I retired in 2000, I sat along the great Mike Lang, a Hall of Famer, for 3 years and doing local in Pittsburgh like I did. And there's no doubt, Nick, that, and you know how I feel about Johnny, is he is bound for the Hall of Fame as well, with the way that he carries himself in the booth, the way that he carries himself off the ice, the way he represents the game, representing Hartford for all those years, Carolina for all of those years, and now, here in Seattle. He's the ultimate team player. When you listen to his call, and I get to listen and watch because I'm sitting right next to him, he has the ability to know what is, when it is time to really amp it up, and then understanding that it's okay to let it breathe, to let the game breathe, and that is a lot of games. That is experience. That's knowing the audience. That's knowing the situation. But Johnny's the ultimate teammate. He knows how to incorporate the people he is working with, because he is the captain. He is our captain on our team. He allows us as analysts, or if we need to send it down to Piper, he has that ability to be able to make everybody feel a part and to know what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and then put them in that position. But then also to be able to weave in conversation while the fastest game in the world is going on. So his call is infectious. People get excited. I mean, that is part of our job, is to entertain, because look, we all know what's going on in the real world. And when people turn on Root Sports and hear Johnny call the game, people, at least when I watch sports, I want to be taken away from everything else that's going on in the real world or in my world. And Johnny has that incredible ability to be able to entertain and excite people about the game of hockey. And look, we want the Kraken to go 82-0. I mean, but that's not the reality. Is that I think the consistency and the honesty and the predictability is what sets Johnny apart from a lot of other broadcasters. And like I said, I'm very lucky. I mean, on the national side, I'm working with Kenny Albert on TNT. I'm working with Johnny on the local side, and the gentleman that I said that, I know people don't use this word when they talk about Eddie Olczyk, but I've been very smart to align myself with some of the greatest broadcasters that we've had in our game for a long, long time. So it's very comforting because there is I think, Johnny, you would agree with this, and you've worked with a lot of guys, and you work with with our friend Trip Tracy in Carolina for forever. And I think when we talk to young broadcasters or aspiring broadcasters, regardless of what age they are, is there has to be a trust. There has to be a trust factor, and I trust Johnny. I trust JT. We trust Johnny. He trusts us, and I think that's where you develop the chemistry. Is that there has to be a trust factor. Communicating. So, he's as good as it gets in the league, nationally, locally, doesn't matter. The Kraken Nation, as Johnny likes to say, is very lucky to have him be the voice and to be the captain of on the television side for Kraken hockey.
Johnny, does that answer get him a strawberry milkshake, or maybe
Might get him dinner tonight.
on the way home, driving, stopping off somewhere?
It
You
is
get a
always
Happy
about
Meal.
food.
It is always about food, but Nick, I go day by day, so that might get him a dinner.
Johnny, we're all day to day in the
We're all
big picture.
day to
You know
day.
that.
But before we delve into the not that this
We're not
going to
talk about Johnny anymore.
This
Come
is
on,
very
I got
this
some-
is
I got some stories.
This is
here.
very important stuff, but I'm sure all the great Kraken fans out there do want to get your guys' take on this year, where it started, where it is, and kind of where you envision it heading.
Can I go first this time?
but-
Because you've gone to Johnny twice here now,
Well,
and
yeah,
I might take the car keys to go home.
But
and then
actually
you can find,
enjoying-
okay.
you can find a new bear home later.
I like listening to this anyway.
But
so.
the last thing I did want to ask on your guys' rapport and relationship is
Okay, there is no more.
I think that when you guys are doing games,
should we clarify? Should we there seems to be some stuff on that World Wide Web thing where
Well, the internet.
can change
we
on
get
a dime.
we get along, right?
it's the internet.
Somewhat.
All right. Okay,
So
Nick, go ahead.
I want to know, you guys have a lot of fun,
Mm-hmm.
and
Most of the
we are in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
Is it a fine line of knowing when to crack a joke and pull it back, and obviously taking into consideration what's going on during the game?
Oh yeah.
But I think the thing that
It's a great
takes you
question.
guys
It's
takes
an
you guys
excellent
to another
question.
level
It's an excellent question.
is the fact that you can sit there and have fun, whether the Kraken are up 5 or having a tough game, or knowing the time and place of what's going on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, look, that comes with experience. That's, I think, knowing your audience. Sometimes do we have to reel it in? Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, you said fun. I mean, I would hope that when people listen, whether they're diehards or they're maybe just tuning in for the very first time, and we take that into consideration. Johnny does an unbelievable job of if we break down something or we describe something or simple thing is, hey, Coach Hackstall, is he going to use his timeout? Well, geez, how many timeouts does he have? How many does he get in a game? And then Johnny will just subtly, without talking down to anybody, is drop that little nugget in there. So from that point of view, that's super important. But we want to teach. Johnny used the word educate. We want to entertain. We want to have fun. We want people to have learned something at the end of the day when they watch the broadcast, regardless of the outcome. And yeah, sometimes we get off the rails for a minute or two, but I think it's knowing that, hey, at the drop of a hat, all of a sudden, you can go from telling stories or having some fun or talking about our car ride home after the game, to okay, this is a must power play here. But look at I think if you really look at sometimes it's just how the game is going, and sometimes it's there, and sometimes we may go a game, and very rarely, but the game dictates, I think, the broadcast a lot of times, and I think that we. If we go off the rails, it's Johnny's fault. If we go too long, it's Johnny's fault. And I just raised my hand. I'm just doing what Johnny told me to do.
That's true.
So
That's true. We both have been lucky enough to do high stakes games, right? So we both, when we get to that, and this team will someday, hopefully sooner than later, people will see that, that, and I think the Boston game was kind of a little tease as to what that's like, okay? We're both equipped to do that and know how to do it. So we do have the experience, but where we don't have the experience is with somebody like JT, who has done a remarkable job in a short period of time acclimating himself to the job. And what you see is what you get. And what I mean by that is the three of us should be and are the same people on the air that we are off the air, Nick. And if any young broadcasters listen to this podcast, I can't stress that enough. Don't be who you think you're supposed to be. Be authentic, right? So when we come on the air, sometimes we come on the air and I'll be going into my opening spiel and your dad will have something to say. And that's because if we're sitting at morning skate or at a practice or on the plane.
Or dinner,
the same thing happens, right? And with JT, we got a recently retired player that's relatable to this generation of players. And he has an utmost respect for your dad, going way back to when he played junior hockey with your brother. And he also understands the past a little bit, but he can't go too far back like most people, right? And we were young at one point too, so
it was a long time
I don't
ago
think
for
we
you,
went back to
Johnny.
the 30s, but although he claims I did preseason games in the 30s, but
Well,
maybe,
no,
maybe
no,
I did.
I saw it.
Maybe
I
I
saw,
did.
Dickie Dunn wrote it.
Yeah,
and
you
it
gotta believe
it must be true.
You got to believe it, right? And so anyway, so the three of us kind of have that personality in place, right? And I think that definitely translates to the audience.
And turning our sights now towards the team, the guys. It's been night and day. And Johnny, you'd be able to attest to this, having been here last year. Where they started, where they've gotten to, and kind of where they hope to be. What are either of your guys' take on what the team has done this year, considering it's been an incredibly remarkable turnaround?
Well, just touching on the first year, which I think is important, I, for one, thought that Ron and his staff did an amazing job with the draft initially. I thought this was a decent team, and I thought the team would be in the neighborhood of competitive games in the second half and making a little bit of a splash. I didn't go anywhere near the Vegas comparisons. I thought those were outlandish. But that cloud hovered over the team in the first year along with COVID. And the team, it was a weird season for all the teams, but especially for teams where there's 23 new individuals trying to get used to each other and become a team. And I felt that the protocols held back a lot of things that were stunting their dynamic as a group with chemistry. And so then the season started, and there were severe challenges, and it started to go off the rails, and it wasn't very good. And then people could second-guess the expansion roster and all this stuff. But it's remarkable how Ronnie stayed focused on his plan, focused on his job, did a remarkable job at the first trading deadline, set up an off-season where you've seen the additions and what difference they've made. And now here it is. So now what you have is a hard-working team with balance that's right in the mix, that can make it, could stumble, could get in, make some noise. There's a lot of things that could happen with this team. But I hope the fans realize that, there's a lot in play here, including players who are not here. And that's really impressive. So I think the turnaround has been great. I think there was already something cooking here. And I think for the players who were allowed to come back for the second season, a lot of these guys came back with different types of roles and have flourished in those roles. And I think it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been an incredible turnaround, but I don't think anybody is surprised at how competitive and where they are in the standings, or have been in the standings at the All-Star break, where we're not sitting at the top of the division. I mean, so from that point of view, there's so many positives. And you look at how this roster, I don't want to say subtly changed by Ronnie. I better give your Uncle Rick and my brother a little credit too there. Give Ricky Olczyk a little bit of
Brown and Cornell.
A little bit of
Cornell and Brown. Where'd you go to college?
I'm sorry?
What? Huh?
No, I did not go to college. Ricky went to college for me. He went to Brown and Cornell. How's that? Okay. So it's as close as I could get to those two schools. It's my brother. So look at the entire hockey operation staff, the moves that they made in the summertime. They addressed having the puck way more this year over the course of summer, that they were going to have the puck more than they did last year. So when you have the puck more, you're defending less. And pretty healthy to this point for the most part, which has been huge. But the additions of guys that have won, guys that can be offensive difference makers, and I think the fastness that the team plays with, and give Coach Hackstall and his staff the credit for putting these guys in that situation and the way that they play. So one thing of being around the league a lot and talking to a lot of people, everybody, and I'm talking highest executives in the leagues around with the individual teams to other broadcasters, is how fast and how quick that we play. Mm-hmm. And I say it, and I've said it from day one, and I will say it all the way to the end, is when this team is playing their game and playing to their potential, is that they win the battle in between the two blue lines. And Johnny used it the other night in the Boston game we were talking about that, and Johnny perfectly used the analogy of the line of scrimmage. And when they are managing the puck when they have it, and when they are managing that area of the ice when they don't have it, they've had 3 or 4 games this year. Game in Vegas early in the year, Johnny, I think it was Black Friday, right?
Yep, that's right.
Vegas. I mean, that was like, I still think that that's the best game that I've seen this team play all year, regardless of the outcome. But the game, obviously, in Boston, you go into Boston, they hadn't lost in regulation, and you shut down them. That game was incredible from watching on TV. So for me, the success that this team has had and will have and down the stretch is how they play with and without the puck in the middle of the ice, and that speaks to the guys. Now, individually, the pair of Dunn and Larson have been, as good as a pair there's been in the NHL. We've said it from 5 games in to 60 games in. Like that pair has been the matchup pair for the most part. And you need, like when you look at teams that have won, like if fans are looking and like when you look at teams that have had success or always near the top, a real common theme is you got to get goaltending, because we know if you don't get goaltending, you're not going to win. But you got to have a couple of big boys on the back end. And Dunner and Lars are I've been just thoroughly impressed with the way that they've been able to play together and be those difference makers. And it's been a lot of fun, obviously, in my first year being here. And the team is it's fun, it's competitive, and you know what you're going to get. So look at the I think there's a great confidence throughout the organization, and there should be with the fan base. And look at, I thought at the beginning of the year, I thought they'd be an 88-ish point team. They're on pace for 98 or whatever it is right now, whatever the number, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But look at, they're playing meaningful games. They will be playing meaningful games, and it's been a lot of fun. And look at, they've been like, I think Hack, like right now, season ended right now, I think Hack would be a very close finalist for one of the coaches of the year. I really believe that. Now, look, you see what's going on in Boston. I mean, okay, Jimmy Montgomery's. I mean, they've lost 7 games all year in regulation or whatever. Okay, but like the job that he has done, and I mentioned Dunn and Larson, and you look at the guys up front, and with the leadership of a guy like Yanni Gord, and so there's just so many positive things that have gone on, and I think they will learn from what has transpired here, and it will help the franchise both on and off the ice, because we are in the entertainment business, and this team has entertained extremely well. And look, it is a win, and it is a win and loss business. but I think this team has proven to themselves. Most importantly, is that they can play with anybody when they play their game.
Johnny, anybody in particular this year, players that have stood out to you, players that have maybe taken a step or a jump from last year? Could be a young guy, could be an older guy that have really, in your eyes and in your mind, have been impactful this year. Maybe guys that have flown under the radar a little bit as opposed to the star names, but just guys this year you think that have made a big impact?
Well, there's so many because that's how they win, right, Nick? So they win by having balance. So it's really hard to earmark even a couple of guys. Your dad mentioned, for me, the most important is that defense pairing. And each one, Larson or Dunn, have had moments of greatness. And as far as a steady Eddie, no pun intended to the guy across from me over there, but Adam Larson has been unbelievable, really unbelievable. You would have to really be on this and watch this every night and understand what a solid minutes-eating defenseman means to a team.
Hard minutes too, Johnny.
Hard minutes, hard matchups every single night. In terms of the forwards, it's been interesting, right? So the first guy you would talk about is Beniers, right? You would say, wow, could be the rookie of the year. It's been great to watch him. It's been great to watch progressions within his game. It's been great to listen to your dad, point out certain things about what he's going through, because the only way to understand what people go through is to do it, right? So the only thing I can understand, Nick, is if someone wanted to call games in the National Hockey League, I can relate to that, right? And I can tell that individual, man or woman, what you need to do, in my opinion, to do it. But your dad lived the life of an 18-year-old high draft choice and walked into a hometown situation. And, I mean, you can't even wrap your head around that unless you went through it, right? So he had the expectation of United States Olympic team, Chicago, 18 years of age, pretty decent-looking individual. I mean, all these things.
Grant, can we cut that out and maybe add a different adjective there?
All these things, are hard to
what
navigate.
Are you laughing at too, by the way, over there, Nick? You think that's funny?
I think it was a nice line.
I think so too.
Where was I? Anyway, so to watch him go through that, your dad's been able to kind of take us through what he's navigating at this level. That's been fun to watch. But there have been other guys like Bjorkstrand who came in ballyhooed with a big trade, unbelievably great trade, and went through a period of time where he was trying to find it with a new team. That's not easy to do. Again, we have guys on our broadcasts with your dad, with JT, that can tell us why. Tell us what it's like to walk into a new room, a new city, and try to put pressure on yourself to play. Well, look how Bjorkstrand has played over the last 6-7 weeks. Like, really
Real
good.
solid. Yeah.
And that line has been very important. And Tolvanen's addition has been very important.
Heck of a waiver pickup.
Yeah, right? So you can go down the list here, and what happens is when you go down a list, you leave somebody out, and that's unfortunate. And so...
But Johnny made the... Sorry, Johnny, but just like you made the perfect point, the depth of this team.
That's the key.
And guys, two things. Role player. Everybody has a role. You got to do two things, accept and execute.
Yep.
And the depth of this team, is... the leadership, too, is another thing. I don't know. I think I mentioned it earlier, but they have great leadership there from Eberle and Schwartz and, and McCann, and I go
right
on
there.
and on and on. So that's a real important part of the success that this team has had.
John Forslund, Eddie Olczyk.
What is that? What do you? Is that
Are we
it?
done? I thought this
Came
was a
all the
three-day.
way
you,
for,
I thought this was a three-day
for
event.
32 minutes.
Hey.
What is that? That's it.
Wow.
How long are
You-
is
Can we
this
do
a
the
podcast?
post?
I was just
podcast?
addressing you
We do
guys.
the
That's
post-
all.
Oh, you were?
I was just
Is this the
addressing
halfway
you guys.
point?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Really?
we
We
have a
still have another
sponsorship?
7
No
hours,
notes.
so grab your popcorn and grab the blanket. Last thing I did want to ask you guys quickly. Trade deadline is looming. A lot of moves could be made, possibly made. Any additions in particular that you guys think would help take this team to the next level?
Look, I think the best way to answer that would be and we said it on the broadcast. I think we open up against Boston. Is this team's been around for 130 5 games, whatever the number is, right in their infancy. I think Ronnie has a plan. Hockey operations has a plan, knowing where they were, where they are, and where they're trying to get to. If it is going to make them better, there is no doubt that Ronnie's going to turn that stone over and think about it. And, how's it going to affect the room? How's it going to affect, today? And how's it going to affect the future of the franchise? Sure. Would you love to see him go out there and, and bring in a 6'5" center iceman or a all-star number one defenseman or what? Sure. But those guys don't grow on trees, and you got to, in order to do that, you got to give up somebody and something. So, is there going to be some tweaking? I'd be surprised if there wasn't a tweak or two for sure. But those are all the things that happen. So, I think it's been talked. It's been well documented. I mean, the face-off dot has been probably the one thing that's been talked about the most, Johnny. Right?
Yes.
So look at if you can find a center iceman out there that can, be in that 54 to 56 percentile, and if a guy's available. But look, Nick, there's 20 other teams right now that are probably looking, for somebody like that. So I know there's not a lot there, but I think, if you look at the job and Ronnie's history and his track record, let's make it perfectly clear here. The back of his hockey card is as good as it ever gets when it comes to the player. And when you talk about manager, you look at the job they did in Carolina. Let's make it perfectly clear. The Carolina Hurricanes are who and what they are now because of the job that Ron Francis did when he was there. He put that team in a position to have success. It's taken them a couple of years. They haven't won yet. But when you look at the heart of a team that a lot of people think they can make a run, Ronnie's track record, this is the perfect guy to be running this ship. And we'll see what happens. But look, players are wondering, fans are wondering, broadcasters are wondering if something's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see. I expect maybe a tweak or two, but we'll just have to wait and see.
And the only thing I'll add to that great answer is this. You want to be in a position of strength at the trading deadline. And the team and the manager are in a position of strength. He holds the cards. He's not in a weakness position. He doesn't have to go out and do anything if he doesn't want to. People could criticize that if that happens, but look where the team is in the standings.
Right.
Look at the group. You can energize a team by going in there, and he's talked to the veterans on this team to see where they're at. And if he walks in there and says, it's all yours, boys, you've done a great job, go for it, I think he's comfortable with that. But by being in a position of strength where he can go out and do something and wait and see, who knows what's going to happen on the day, right? It could be before, but wild things can happen on March 3rd, and he's in a position with draft picks,
flexibility, right,
with
John?
prospects,
right.
And with position in the standings. He's not trying to make a playoff spot because his job or the coach's job or there's things on the line here. He's got a team in a playoff spot, and it should be by the time we get to March 3rd, okay? Let's hope so. And if it isn't, it's still in the neighborhood, and there's still plenty of hockey left. So he's in a position of strength in the second year of operation. When you look at where the minor league team is and who's playing there, the prospects from his first draft, and he only had 2 drafts, and he knows this draft, and he said it the other day, this is the best draft of his existence with this team. So the next draft will be really good, and he's got picks. So what else do you want? It's a position of strength. That's what you want. Weakness leads to mistakes in most places, even the booth.
Speaking of trades, and we'll end on this. You were traded once, Dad, right? A couple of times. But one
tried to get into that the other night.
One more
and
notable.
He cut me off.
One trade a little bit more notable than others. Is that might have involved Mom? Do you have?
Yeah.
Can you spare us a couple minutes to tell us perhaps the single greatest story of being traded in all of professional sports?
So November 9th, 1990, your mother went into labor with your brother, Tommy. And back then, there were no cell phones, folks. Back in at least I didn't have one in 1990.
There was a time where there were no cell phones?
We had phone booths.
Let me tell the story. You weren't even born yet, so just sit there.
Phone booths.
So I called the team from a landline phone and said, look, I'm not going to be at the morning skate the next day because we were playing the Blackhawks in Toronto. I said, I won't be at the skate around, but I'll be at the game. So your mom went into labor on that Friday. We went to the hospital in the suburbs of Toronto. And she wasn't cooperating in the morning. Like she was, you know, the baby wasn't coming. And, you know, I'm like, come on, we got a game tonight at 8 o'clock here. We got to start getting going here. And about 3:30, your mom said, okay, all of a sudden, you know, things started happening. And all of a sudden, I got a call from the Maple Leafs, you know, wondering how mom was doing. And I'm like, at the hospital, actually, at the nurse's station. And I said, look, she hasn't had the baby, but I'm going to be at the game. It's an 8 o'clock game. They said, no, call us before you come. I go, I'm not calling. I'll just be at the game. So we go into the delivery room, and now it's like 5:30, and the doctor says, okay, hold on. Let me put my catcher's mitt on here. Hold on a second here. I'm like, what, catcher's mitt? So, and on a scale of 1 to 10, with your brother eventually coming into this world, your mom was about a 7. So, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, she was a 7. Tommy's on his way. And next thing you know, I'm at the side of the bed, you know, cheering mom on and helping her. And I got a note handed me from the nurse. It says, the Toronto Maple Leafs are on the phone. I'm like, tell them she's having a baby. I'll be at the game. She comes back. She goes, no, they really want to talk to you. So I'm at the foot of the bed. I'm at the side of the bed, and there's my wife on her back. Doctor's at the foot of the bed. He's got the rubber gloves on. He's got the mask on, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, should I stay or should I go? That'd be a good song, right? I'm like, stay, go. I go, all right, I'll just walk out for a second. So I sneak out. I get to the nurse's station. It's the PR guy, Bob Stellick, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and goes, hey, Eddie, how's Diana? I go, Bob, she's having a baby. It's like about 10 to 6 now. I go, she's having a baby. I'll be at the game in 45 minutes. I'll be there. I'm going to play tonight. He goes, well, call us before you come. I go, I'm not calling you. He goes, hold on a second. Hold on. I said, I got to get, he goes, and all of a sudden I hear hello. I hear the voice of the general manager. Floyd Smith is the general manager. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And he goes, Eddie, we hate to do this to you, but we just traded you to the Winnipeg Jets. And I went, you got to be bleeping me. You got to be bleeping me. My wife's in there having a baby, and you call me out here to tell me, and I'm like, son of a gun. I'm like, so I just hang up the phone, and again, I go to a payphone. I punch in a bunch of numbers to be able to call. I call my dad. I call my agent. I call Mark Osborne, who I got traded with to Winnipeg. And I'm gone maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I come back into the delivery room, and as I'm walking in, my wife turns her head to the door and says, where have you been? And I'm like, my aunt's sick. I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, I didn't want to tell her, So the doctor's at the foot of the bed. He's watching this conversation, and as I start walking closer to her, she looks at me, looks at the ceiling. Again, she's on her back. The doctor's still at the foot of the bed, and she says, where are we going? And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I go, I figured, I guess. She says, Winnipeg. And I go, oh, my goodness. Pregnant and psychic. I go, what a combination. And I'm just like, next thing you know, I look at the doctor, and the doctor with disgust comes out from under the sheet, pulls off his rubber gloves, takes his mask off. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's not coming for a while here. So my wife just shut right down. 2 hours later, eventually Tommy Olczyk was born into this world. And I got to say, becoming a member of the Winnipeg Jets was as good as of an experience that I had in the National Hockey League because I love Winnipeg. We were there almost 6 years. But my intro to becoming a Winnipeg Jet was Tommy Olczyk being born November 10th, 1990. And eventually I left the next day, flew to Chicago, played my first game with Winnipeg. Then we came to Toronto on the Monday and happened to play the Leafs. And then came back home, played the game, brought Mom and Tommy home, and then I went to Winnipeg the next day and started my career in Winnipeg, of being there. So, yeah, the days of remember, Johnny, back in the day, guys would hear about being traded on a cruise, or they were on vacation, or they picked up the newspaper.
Yeah.
Nowadays, everything's instantaneous, so but that would never happen, you know.
You
But
used to lose, if you were, and I was in PR, you'd lose your job if the player didn't know first.
Yeah.
And it was, that was a big thing.
Right.
And today it's impossible. Right. Today the players just look
So,
at Twitter and they figure out where they're going.
So I was in the delivery room, November 10th, 1990, when I got traded from Toronto to Winnipeg. So
That's got to be an all-timer in all sports. I mean, that's
pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
pretty
man.
close. But how about Mom though? She knew. I don't know. How
Rock
she
star.
Knew. Just that's why she's the
rock
greatest.
star.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Johnny,
Are we done yet?
Dad,
Okay.
Edzo,
When do we start?
thank you guys so
Nick,
much, seriously,
tip
for
of the
coming
hockey
on.
helmet to you, man. You've
Good
done
luck,
a hell of a
Nick.
job.
Thank you
So,
very much.
Good luck
Thank you.
with this.
Thank you guys
Yeah.
for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
The
Who's good?
Maiden
You want
Voyage.
us on next? You want us
can we
on
come
next
on
week?
every
Can you come
show?
on every week?
Yeah, just for
I'm
5
just thinking, can we
minutes.
put a mic in the car when you guys go
No, we
home
want
together
only video.
after the game?
Only video.
It'll
Those
be
are
like
some
Cash
of the
Cab.
best
It'll be
rides
like
there. Hold on,
Cash
it's my
Cab. You
Uber.
guys will.
I'll be out there in 2 minutes. Okay.
And we
I'll be
have
out there in 2 minutes.
we also
Thank you.
have a longer journey coming up. We're going to
Yeah.
Vancouver soon,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
yet story yet to be told.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so
Thanks,
much for
Nick.
coming on. Signals
Thank you.
from the Deep. First episode. This is going to be the
Maybe
destination.
Maybe the only. Maybe the first and only.
Yeah,
No, we
Just
got
put it on a
I've
loop.
we
killed
got
a
a
lot
long
of
Put it on a
careers.
we got
I've
a
killed a lot of
long-term
careers
plan.
in my day.
Now you can kill a podcast.
We got a long-term plan.
All right.
This is going to be the destination for all things Kraken. Kraken fans, Kraken Nation, as Johnny Forslund likes to call them. You need information. You want to laugh. You want to learn. This is the spot. Kraken official podcast. So thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your time. For Johnny Forslund.
Can I download
Eddie
this
Olczyk.
on my on the World Wide Web thing?
And our fantastic
What is a
producer,
podcast?
Grant Beery.
All right, Grant. Way to go.
Way to go, Grant.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Have a great day.
Signals from the Deep is the official podcast of the Seattle Kraken. Hosted by Nick Olczyk and produced by Grant Beery. Episodes are available from NHL.com/Kraken or anywhere you get your podcasts.